investigative journalist.
And this massive heist only beat the most massive record-breaking heist right before it, as we see each time, like junkies, needing more and more, a bigger hit each time. My friends, we could do, and probably should do, entire more episodes on what's going on in this engineered collapse, this controlled demolition of our economy that we can source back to the Federal Reserve and the bankster practices of the last 100-plus years. But let's get into geopolitics, where we have the aging Fidel Castro warning nuclear war, quote, breaking out very soon. More on that from News Junkie Post. He is, of course, referring to the volatile situation where it's always volatile by design in the Middle East. The warships, the fear-mongering, the threat-aganda, the ratcheting up, beating the drums for war against Iran, which is not like Iraq, which is not like Afghanistan. They have not been subject to crippling sanctions for decades. They haven't been bombed into oblivion by depleted uranium. They will be able to fight back. Their connections to Russia and China through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is going to make this a very ugly situation. This is what ties in with this Amiri story. That just ties in with the beating of the drums for this war that this crumbling empire suicidally wants, as again, we're tied to the nation of Israel in this Armageddon death pact. U.S. conservatives form a new pro-Israel lobby group because, you know, they don't really have enough people looking out for their interests, you know, AIPAC. More on that from Haaretz, and that, again, sources back to our reactionary Congress critters. An interesting but long one, but worth it, from, again, my man Jeff Long of RockCreekFreePress.com and RedactedNews.blogspot.com. For propaganda to work, it must first be believable. This story goes into the captured Palestinian missile-launching garbage truck. And in this era of Photoshop, you should be able to take a look and say, one, well, I don't really think that's Photoshopped, and two, do a little research and learn that they're not missile launchers. They're built into the truck for other reasons that, again, we can't get into, but it segues quite nicely into our next story that does come from nationalterroralert.com, and we can put this along with the story we referenced a couple weeks ago where the Taliban was supposedly putting HIV-infected needles into bombs. And as we, again, note, for propaganda to work, it must first be believable. Taliban jihad terror monkeys, probably not real. That's the headline from nationalterroralert.com, as if you need to be told that this video and this story was even partly believable. And again, we'll reference what's real, what's satire. The line becomes increasingly blurred, and again, I think that's why the work of independent alternative media becomes all the more important to debunk a lot of these stories the moment they hit the meme sphere. But we'll close off our geopolitics with a quick note from CNN's Rick Sanchez, where he notes that the recent terror bombings are helpful.
I want to tell you a story now. Welcome back. I'm Rick Sanchez. This is Rick's List. This is a story about a guy named Nate Henn. This is important. Stay with me here. By all accounts, American Nate Henn was a hell of a guy. This is a selfless individual who devoted his young life to helping others. Today, he's dead. Nate Henn is dead, killed by murderous terrorists in the faraway land of Uganda, where Henn was working with children. Thousands of people had gathered in Uganda's capital to watch the final game of the World Cup. They're watching a soccer game. The game was in its 19th minute when the bombs began to explode. One at a restaurant, then two at a rugby field where they were watching on an outdoor screen. Our latest tally of the number who died, 74. 74 innocent people are dead. Joining me now is Gary Bernstein. He's a former CIA officer. But you know what's interesting about this? In a strange way, the event is helpful to the cause of those of us who know how sadistic these fundamental radical Islamic terrorists are. And if it helps get the message out there that these are not the good guys, then so be it.
I like how his voice cracks there. How they are. As we've noted time and time again, we see the criminal syndicate calling for helpful terror attacks. Whenever they're talking about whatever agenda is trying to be pushed by whatever puppet administration, as the wheels start to fall off, and of course there's no public support for their austerity or draconian measures, what do you see? You see the insiders saying, well, we'd sure like to do all these things, but we would have to have a 9/11 or an Oklahoma City to make that happen. So we're going to see that in just a moment. As we jump to our history mystery updates, declassified documents show 60s-era senators believed they were misled on the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Gulf of Tonkin incident, of course, helped kickstart into high gear the Vietnam War, where 50-plus thousand Americans lost their lives for a war of aggression based on lies, just as they all are. And that was the catalyzing catastrophic event. That was the false flag kickoff event. That was the Reichstag fire. That was the 9/11 event. That was the sinking of the Maine. That was the event that kickstarted it. And I think it says a lot when you Google or search out Gulf of Tonkin or do research on it. It's always referred to as the Gulf of Tonkin incident or affair. Our other history mystery notes: Robert Groden is suing Dallas over his recent arrest. There's a story from WFAA.com. JFK conspiracy theorist sues Dallas over arrest of basically him selling his books and things in Dealey Plaza. Another story that we got to on the latest episode of The New World Next Week from the Daily Mail: why I'm certain my friend Dr. Kelly was murdered. Dr. Kelly, of course, exposing the lies leading up to the illegal war of aggression based on lies in Iraq. Part 2, the sexing up of the intelligence. He said he'd probably be found dead in a field, and he was. And he was most certainly murdered. 6 police officers charged in Danziger Bridge shooting after Katrina. More on that from the LA Times. And one interesting art note: a recent restoration of a Da Vinci painting called Virgin on the Rocks reveals hidden details. Our new newspurge subheading: Holy Hexes, to fill in all the rising stories of occult, sinister forces in the New Age religion world. This from New York Daily News: Governor Patterson turns to higher power by wearing red string Kabbalah bracelet to ward off evil. That's their headline. But quickly down the list: murder and mayhem. Again, this could go under BioWars EnviroHealth because it happened at a Houston oil executive's home. It could happen under police state, as we see these catalyzing catastrophic events somehow being engineered on schedule with this homegrown errorism. From Raw Story: package bomb goes off at Houston oil executive's home.
Residents in a northwest Houston neighborhood are scared after a bomb was sent to a woman at her home and it exploded. Residents say the explosive was disguised as a box of chocolates. Hello again, everyone. I'm Tom Abrams. Adele Uchida is off tonight. Now, we told you about the attack last night on Eyewitness News at 10, and it still has so many people afraid. Investigators say the woman received the